All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel, back in the gym. This is full body C, C as in Caidin. So we're gonna kind of just jump right into things here today. I haven't even filmed abs. I did my ab work, but no one really wants to see that shit. So we're kind of just jumping straight in with calves. I have my mic on today, really hoping that this actually works. I've done a couple test recordings and they all seem to go pretty good. So hopefully, fingers crossed, it works. If any of you guys are like tech geniuses and can tell me how I can kind of reduce some of the background noise and amplify my voice a little bit more, then please just let me know. But otherwise, I guess some more context. Woke up this morning at a new high body weight, 209 point something. I think some of that is bloat. Last night I had a box of Banza mac and cheese, which is like a chickpea pasta, which was actually really good. But I don't think that I digested it pretty well this morning, and I don't want to get into specifics, but let me just say that I haven't been going to the bathroom as frequently as I should today, so they've kind of backed me up a little bit. So kind of feeling a little bloated headed into the session today, but I don't think that'll really affect things too much. By this point, I've kind of gotten moving, and abs felt really good. I didn't really have any like upset stomach issues as I was kind of crunching down on my abs and anything, so I'm not really too worried about anything with that. But just being a little bit extra bloated, maybe carrying a little extra body weight into the workout today will hopefully kind of give me a little bit of extra oomph, particularly in my pressing movements. Overall, training is going very good for me right now. Every single workout, I'm having at least some instance of at least one of my lifts double progressing, where I'm going up in weight and going up in reps. So everything is going very good there, and really just kind of inclined to keep things going. Calves, we're just getting into calves. We're doing the donkey calf raise today. On my last training video, I kind of talked about how I have two calf raises. One of those is the donkey calf raise, which is what we're going to work on today. Today is also my 8 to 12 rep day on this movement. So the weight that I'm using, I believe, is 590 pounds. But I'm hit that for 11 last week. I'm going to try and hit that for 12 today. That would be the goal, to kind of get things moving. So we're going to jump right into this one today, and we're going to go ahead and get it started. We'll catch up with you guys as we go. Flying hamstring curl. I have, we have four hamstring curls in this gym. Two of them lying, one single leg, and then one seated. I'm not using the single leg one right now, and the first lying one that's out in the other room kind of sucks. So this is the Arsenal Strength one. I really like this one. I use the seated leg curl and the lying leg curl in the same week. I just alternate lying, seated, and then both of them have a 5 to 8 rep range, and then both of them have an 8 to 12 rep range. This is the 8 to 12. Yeah, this is the 8 to 12 day on the lying. Last week I hit this weight for 11, so just like the calf raise, I'd like to hit that for 12 today, and I definitely think that I can do that. One of the big things, if not the biggest thing that I see with lying hamstring curls is what's happening at the pelvis. Very, very commonly, I'll see people either when they're getting into the stretch or they're coming into the contraction where they will anteriorly tilt their pelvis and kind of arch their spine, and I try to posteriorly tilt my pelvis. You kind of think of like a dog taking a shit. When they take a shit, they kind of round their back a little bit. So that's kind of what I think about doing as I'm pressing my glutes in to the pad of the lying leg curl. So if you're someone who's getting like lower back pain or a lower back pump from doing a lying leg curl, it's probably because you're arching too much in your spine as you're doing the curl. And instead of, again, anteriorly tilting your spine and having a curve here, try and round it like you're a dog taking a shit, and just kind of round that over, just to keep your lumbar spine in a less hyperextended position and kind of in a more natural position. It is going to anteriorly tilt to some degree. It's really, really hard to avoid that, especially on a lying leg curl like this one. It's probably hard to tell from this angle, but the seat is like heavily sloped. Instead of some are more flat. This one has kind of a more of a slope to it. So it's going to be hard to not anteriorly kind of tilt your pelvis like that, but you're trying to fight that as much as you can. All right, I tied on the leg curl, which isn't what I wanted, but I can live with it. I'm happy with the form, and as long as everything else, the rest of the workout keeps going up, then that's fine. I'll eventually get that 12th rep if I just keep knocking on it. Leg extensions. We also have two leg extensions. We have a single leg one, which is what I'm doing now, and then we have the traditional bilateral one, which is behind me. I alternate between the two: single leg, double leg, single leg, double leg. And then my rep ranges are a little different. Today I'm trying to do like 10 to 15. And then on my other day with the single leg, I'm doing 15 to 20. I'm doing very, very high reps on those because I'm dealing with some issues with my quad tendons. Training your quads every other day with a leg extension and a squatting movement beats the shit out of your quad tendons. Who would have thought? So my quad tendons are pretty sore, but I can still train with this level of volume and recover from this level of volume as long as I'm staying safe with the rep ranges that I'm using. And I don't want to go on a rant, but we're training in an age right now where people are very hyper focused on one rep range and one rep range only. And I just think it's not necessary. And I think there are certain instances where training in much higher rep ranges is appropriate. And when you're dealing with injuries is one of those. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to get into these leg extensions. These kind of suck. I mean, I can't lie. Like, obviously, the pump and everything is great, but the first couple of reps, particularly on my left leg, are very painful. I kind of got to get through the first couple of reps, and then once things kind of get moving and the joint and the muscles kind of get warmed up, things feel a little bit better. But initially, that kind of feels like shit on my quad tendons, especially on the left leg. So just got to kind of lean back and grit through it and deal with it, honestly. Fuck. Okay, adductor is number 5. Usually I would do the adductor before the leg extension, but the adductor was taken when I finished up the leg curl, so I'm just flip-flopping those. I realistically don't see it affecting anything anyways. The leg extension held. I've progressed my calf raises, but everything else up until this point has just held. So that means that later on in the workout, I'm going to get gifted some big progressions, right? Because I'm saving my energy for for later. In all seriousness, I'm totally fine with the lifts holding. They're going to go up eventually. So obviously, it's nice to kind of have the expectation that everything will go up every single workout, and it's normal to go on periods where that's happening. But it's also normal to have periods where maybe only a couple of your lifts are progressing and some are holding. And especially if you're dieting, it's very common to have periods of time where almost everything is holding. As long as you're connecting well with the muscle, the muscle tissue isn't going anywhere. So that's not really something that I'm super concerned about. But we'll get into the adductors here before we get into the leg press, which I'm very excited to do today. I'm really liking this leg press a lot. 12 to 15 rep range day for the adductor. I added 1 pound from last rotation, and last rotation I hit that weight for 14. So I'm hoping to get either 14 or as close to that as I can get today. And then, like I said, we're going to get into the leg press, which I'm pretty stoked about. All right, leg press. Let's get into some fun. Got 13 reps on the adductor, which is great. I can build that up into 14 and 15. That's really not a problem. And especially considering I normally do that as exercise number 4, having done that as exercise number 5, I feel pretty good. If I had done that at number 4, that I would have been able to get that 14th rep. So pretty happy with the way that things are moving up until this point, even though the logbook may not necessarily indicate massive amounts of progression on everything. But we're getting into the leg press. I'm loving this leg press. This is the Arsenal Strength leg press. If there are any old heads out there who are watching this video, if you guys remember Nebula, the Nebula leg press, I'm pretty sure Arsenal bought out Nebula. So I'm pretty sure that this feels extremely similar to the build of the Nebula one. The very first gym that I ever trained in was the Freeport, Illinois YMCA, and they still have a Nebula leg press, thank God, because that thing is awesome. It's probably one of, if not my favorite leg presses of all time. So for this thing to be modeled off of that is really, really great. What's particularly great about this leg press, which hopefully you'll be able to hear me as I kind of walk away and get into the platform. If you can kind of see in the middle, this platform is kind of split down the center, and you can't see it, but on the opposite side of the sled, there's a little bolt that will connect these two plates together. So today we're going to do this as a normal leg press where we do this bilaterally, but this particular leg press can also be done unilaterally because of the way that the platform kind of splits and breaks together. Like I said, we are going to do this bilaterally today just because I feel like that's how I get my most output. And I did do a unilateral exercise on the leg extension out there in the front room. So we're going to do this bilaterally. We've been doing it bilaterally for a while. And this being a quad focused compound movement, this is kind of a movement that I can get maybe a little bit more aggressive with the loading. So instead of adding 1 to 2 pounds, I've usually been getting away with being able to add 5 pounds, a 2.5 on each side, every rotation. And always tying reps, but sometimes taking another rep on top of that too. So pretty excited to get into these. Everything up until this point has kind of held more or less, but if I get progression on this, that'll really be all that I care about. Quick tip for really any leg press, guys. This leg press in particular is extremely adjustable in terms of how high and how low you can put the seat. Most are not as adjustable as this. If you're trying to bias your quads, you're almost always going to want to have the seat set as far back as you can. You're trying to basically have as much of an angle as you can between your torso and your hips. You don't want to be closed over this way, because then as you're coming up into flexion at the knee and the hip, your own knee is going to be running into your chest or your sternum. So if you can lean back and kind of increase that distance there, you have less obstacles to clear with your knee, which will allow you to get more knee flexion and more lengthening of the quad muscles. All right, Arsenal incline. This thing is pretty great. It stretches like fucking crazy though. So what you will see when I start the first rep, I'm gonna have a couple of these like bar clips that are kind of set in between the arms of the machine and the pegs. And that's just gonna give me a little bit of clearance. This is, I don't know, 2 inches or so, maybe 2.5 inches. It's just gonna give me a little bit of clearance to get that first rep started. And then from there, I can ease into the stretch. But I don't like starting that first rep all the way back in the stretch. So I kind of use these just to take a little bit of tension out of there. A little safer on the shoulder, a little safer on the pec tendon to not start that far back. And then what you'll notice is I have a little bit of a push, and then I obviously don't count that. I just do a little bit of a push, and then these will fall, and then I'll sink slowly into the stretch, and then I'll start the first rep from there. Getting into lat pull downs next. What I would typically do is I would do the incline and then a narrow grip press for my triceps. But the machine that I do the narrow grip press is being used right now. So a normal day would go chest, tricep, and then lat, upper back. And today I'm just flip-flopping these two. So I'm gonna go chest, lat, tricep, upper back. I'm actually kind of curious to see if doing an exercise between my chest and my tricep movement kind of gives my triceps some chance to recover, so that when I do the narrow grip press, maybe I can progress that. Instead of doing 2 pressing movements back to back, kind of sandwiching a third movement in between there, just to kind of give the triceps, chest, shoulders a little bit of a break, so to say. So we'll see how that goes. Lat pull down. I'm bilaterally. I'm using a neutral grip. The main thing I want you guys to notice, particularly towards the end of the set, is when the reps get really hard. I'm basically doing like a mini calf raise with my feet. I'm really driving my quads hard into the quad pad. This is here for a reason. Use it. You want to provide some stability and counter force against that. And you do that by driving your quads into it. So I'm kind of always, if this is the ground and this is my foot, I'm always kind of putting a little bit of pressure on my forefoot to drive the quads into the pad to create that maximum stability there. But especially as you get towards the end of the set, that needs to be emphasized even more. So pay attention to how I do that here. Pull downs went up by a rep, so that worked out, being able to do the pull down first. We're going to do our triceps now with a narrow grip press. The term narrow grip press is kind of misleading. I think a lot of times when people hear narrow grip press, they quite literally think the more narrow that they can get, the better, but that isn't necessarily the case. There is kind of a certain point, and what I like to think about, this is actually a really good angle to kind of demonstrate from. If you guys just kind of stand here, completely relaxed, and put your arms to your side and raise them straight up like this, you'll notice in this position that everything from my finger up to my shoulder is all in a straight line. And that is important because the more movement and lines that we have, the more that we're putting stress on our joints. So for example, in this position, you'll kind of notice as my arm and my elbow go into flexion and extension that my knuckles are almost essentially coming to my front delt here. Everything is kind of folding directly on top of each other. Whereas if my grip is too narrow as I do that, my forearm here is kind of being pulled into a degree of internal rotation. And if my grip is too wide, it's getting pulled into a grip of external rotation. And not only is that not good for your joints and it's going to cause some wear and tear over time, but you're not as strong in that position as you are when you're in more of a neutral and natural position. So that's kind of where the term narrow grip press comes in. When you kind of notice most people do some sort of like a chest focused press, their grip is slightly wider, and I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing. Because to a certain extent, that degree of external rotation at the forearm is going to cause you to get more adduction in the elbows. But we're training the triceps with this movement. We're not trying to get any adduction at the elbows. We're trying to keep the elbows a little bit more tucked to the side and just focus on flexing and extending from the wrist up into the shoulder. And that's really the only thing that we're focused on doing here. So this is actually a decline chest press, and so the movement actually kind of presses at a slight downward angle. So I set the seat up high so that I'm above it, so that when the machine is pressing down, I'm kind of somewhat replicating like a tricep press down. Whereas if the seat was too low, that wouldn't necessarily be bad, but my finishing position would kind of be a little bit more higher, kind of replicating more of a JM press. And that's not what I'm trying to do here. I do a JM press in one of my other workouts. So this is kind of more focused on like a press down or a narrow grip type of pattern instead of something more overhead like a JM or something like that. Narrow grip press didn't go the way that I wanted it to go. I wanted to get 4 and I got 3. Kind of the same as the adductor. I feel like if I had done that a little bit earlier before the pull down, I would have been able to get that 4th rep, but it's no big deal. I'm really not concerned about it. Last movement for the back is a seal row. You'll notice that this is very different than a T-bar row. Most T-bar rows are 45 degrees. This thing is almost completely parallel to the ground. It does have a slight angle, but it's very, very, very slight. This makes this thing way harder than a T-bar row, but I also think it makes it a little bit more effective than a T-bar row. So I also use the T-bar row as well. We have a T-bar row that I'm looking at right now. You guys can't see it, but I do that every week. And then I also do this too. What you'll notice with all of my upper back training, with this movement today, once I can no longer hit full retraction, I will do Kelso shrugs. I'll just continue to retract my scapula until there's absolutely nothing left in the traps at all. And then once we finish this, we'll get into biceps, rear delts, and side delts, which is comparatively pretty easy, and then we'll call it a day. So this is really going to be the last movement of the day that's really going to take a lot out of me. The last 3 movements are usually pretty simple and straightforward after this. Took a pound on the seal row, so that is a good way to wrap up everything there. Getting into some of the final three movements here is some comparatively easy stuff. Preacher curls first. I've actually been doing this for like 3 weeks, and this is the first time that I've filmed it. I don't I don't know who makes this. There's no manufacturer on it, but this thing has been around forever. I've been a member of this gym for 6 years, and this piece has been here the whole time. So I don't know who makes it, but it's a really good preacher. Again, I've been doing this for about 3 weeks. I don't remember what I was doing before this. I think I was doing like a cable curl or something like that, and it just wasn't. I was actually having like an injury in my thumb, and the cable handle like pressing into my thumb was really bothering me, and the lift wasn't really progressing either. So I just swapped it out and put something else in. So this is the preacher that we've been running with. It's been progressing every rotation, and this is actually the first time that I'm going to be adding weight to it. So I got 1 pound less than this last week for 8 reps, so I'd like to get as close to 8 as I can today. Rear delt flies on the reverse pec deck. This is about as basic as it gets for rear delts for me. I do not do these hanging on to the handle. I like to put the support of the handle, I guess what this would be, along my wrist here, and that's what my wrist wraps are for, is purely just for padding. For whatever reason, I get a better connection with my rear delts, and this feels better to me if I can put the handle instead of here. I can kind of shift it a little further up my arm. So that's how I like to go about doing things here. You'll also notice that I'm trying to keep my head planted into this for as long as I can. It's very easy for a rear delt movement to turn into an upper back movement if there's too much momentum. I really try and remind myself and remind clients that the rear delt is like this big. You know, it doesn't take a lot of weight and precision with your movement to be able to hit your rear delt, but it also doesn't take a lot to shift tension from the rear delt onto some of the other surrounding musculature in your upper back. So just keep in mind what you're trying to do with a rear delt movement is you're trying to minimize the amount of scapular movement that you're getting. When you're doing an upper back movement, you're trying to maximize the amount of scapular movement you're getting. You're trying to maximize the amount of protraction you're getting in the stretch, and then the amount of retraction that you're getting in the shortened position. But with your rear delts, you're really just kind of trying to lock your scapula in place, and then the only thing that moves is the upper arm. Again, this is a very, very tiny muscle. It's very easy to miss the muscle with sloppy movement. So this is a precision finesse type of exercise. All right, last movement of the day is the lateral raise. This is made by Cybex. This machine is really, really great. Unfortunately, it's pretty light. So I'm doing this single arm unilaterally because doing it bilaterally, I've maxed this thing out a long time ago. The way that it's shaped is very strange. It doesn't really allow for a gym pin to be added to it, so I've had to switch to it single arm, and honestly, I'm getting close to maxing it out single arm too. So really the main thing that is different between doing this movement unilaterally versus doing it bilaterally is where I have to position myself. When you're doing it bilaterally, you can kind of keep your body a little bit more centered to the center of the machine. But when you're doing it single arm, you kind of run out of range of motion in the center of the machine. So in order to be able to kind of keep yourself a little bit more stable in the machine and then also allow that side delt to fully stretch as that arm adducts across your body, I kind of have to lean into the working side. So if I'm, lateral raising this way, I'm slightly leaned in this way. And if I'm going this way, I'm kind of leaned into that direction. You'll probably be able to see when I set the camera up, I have the opposite leg is like hard pressing into something else. So when I'm doing my left arm, my right leg is going to be pressed into the preacher curl. And then when I do the right arm, my left leg is pressed into this other lateral raise. But that's really because I'm kind of leaning my body this way or a direction, whether it's this way or this way. And then I'm kind of using that opposite leg kind of as like a kickstand to support me as I'm doing that. So it's kind of a funky setup, but until I can find a way to be able to add more weight onto this thing and keep doing it bilaterally, this is going to be the way that we're just going to have to do it for now. So we'll bust these out and then that'll be it. Ready to go home and get some food in. All right, guys, that wraps things up. Really good day today. Training in general is going very, very good. So very happy with the process. Everything is going good. Body weight's going up, lifts are going up, connecting with the muscle very well. I'm definitely at all-time strength with all-time focus and all-time connection with the movements that I'm doing right now. So everything is going very, very good. Haven't posted a physique update in a while, but I'm just kind of waiting for the right time. Today, in between the leg press and the incline press, I went to take my long sleeve shirt on and put this one on, and I was like, damn, back looks pretty good. So obviously the back isn't the focal point. The focal point is the legs. So still got a lot of work to do on those, but pretty happy with the way that things have gone so far this year, and really just kind of try to keep it rolling for as long as I can. So subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. Link in the description for coaching, consultations, and all that stuff. You guys know where to find me. And as always, guys, take care of yourselves. Stay tuned for the next video. And if you're training, train hard.